Okay, so hopefully this is going to be the first of many more sort of detailed and specific style reviews to come, because this is something that I've kind of always wanted to do on the channel, and I'm going to make an update video about this soon, within the coming weeks or so. But let's just talk about A Star Is Born, because holy shit did this movie hit me hard. Now this video is titled Why A Star Is Born Kind of Broke Me, which, you know, I'll be honest, I think it kind of did. And I want to talk a little bit about why, because I wasn't really heavily anticipating this film. You know, out of all the awardsy films so far, I wasn't really that excited for it. I was looking forward to stuff like First Man, Widows, stuff like that. And really, so going into the film, I didn't have the highest level of expectation. I had seen one trailer and that was it. I heard a lot of good things about it coming out, like the festivals and stuff. And so I was like, okay, fine, maybe it'll be fun. And I went in and I was blown away, because in many ways for me, what I felt about this film was that this film is basically if they took La La Land and then they whiplashed it. That's how I feel about this film. It's because La La Land, it has a very, very sort of dreamlike quality to it. You know, we've all seen La La Land and it feels very, very incredibly cinematic and stuff. But at the same time, I think Damien Chazelle did a very good job of grounding the film and making sure that the characters themselves were realistic. Whereas Whiplash, on the other hand, was just full out, no sugarcoating whatsoever. And so it took the romance aspect and the idea of wanting to be an artist and expressing yourself from La La Land and whiplashed it in the sense that it's completely grounded in reality. It feels gritty, it feels hard hitting. For example, if you've seen A Star Is Born, you'll know that there is an argument scene. Now, the argument scene in La La Land is pretty heated, but it is nothing compared to the one in A Star Is Born. Now, does that mean that this film is better than La La Land or better than Whiplash? No, it doesn't, because I personally still like La La Land and Whiplash a lot more. I'm just saying that on a tonal level, on a stylistic level, it feels kind of like a mashup of the two films, which is great because they're two of my favorite films of all time, and they are the two films that made me want to become a filmmaker. Now, let's talk about Bradley Cooper as a filmmaker, because I think that he does an amazing job. He has said himself that because he's worked with so many great directors like David O. Russell, and he's basically saying that he's taken that knowledge and applied it to his film, which is awesome. One thing I really want to talk about, though, is what he's probably going to get nominated for, because, you know, this film will be up for Oscars for sure. Shallow has basically already won Best Song, but I'm curious as to what you think Bradley Cooper will be nominated for, director or actor, because, you know, a couple years ago Denzel directed and acted in Fences, got nominated for actor. You know, Clint Eastwood usually gets nominated for director. Ben Affleck nominated for director for the Golden Globes, he won. And so I'm curious as to what Bradley Cooper is going to be up for. His performance in this film was shattering. He destroyed that role. It was a mind-blowingly amazing performance. I would say it's top 3 Bradley Cooper performances of all time. And as a director, I want to talk about this a little bit more, because I think it really contributes to why this film broke me emotionally, right? But I'm not really sure what he's going to be up for, but both maybe, but probably not. But I am very, very excited to see where this film goes in terms of the awards. And I'm very, very excited because I'll be rooting for this film. If it wins Best Picture, I don't know, I haven't seen the other contenders, but if it does, I'll be pretty happy, because I think that this is a pretty awesome film to win Best Picture. Now, before we move forward, though, I would like to say that I haven't seen the other 3 films, the other 3 versions of A Star Is Born. So I kind of went into this film with, you know, with fresh eyes, not knowing anything. And really, I thought that just the entire journey of it, I was just blown away. But there are a couple moments throughout the film that really, really broke me. And this is what I want to talk about. Now, when we watch a film, you know, that we know when we've seen a truly, truly great moment that hits us. You know, the last 2 that I can remember are this and this from Infinity War. And that's because I felt like they had spent 10 years building up to these scenes so that they worked so well. That if we just saw those scenes in Infinity War without having seen all the rest of the films in the MCU, it might not have worked so well. So I would say that there are scenes in this movie that are so well built up to, that are so perfectly executed. And the one scene that hit me the hardest was when Lady Gaga, Ali, went to sing for the first time, like properly sing. Now, why did this scene hit me so hard? Well, I would say that it's a couple of things. Firstly, they already established the relationship between her and Bradley Cooper's character so well they show us that these people are strong, but that they're also incredibly vulnerable within the first 20 minutes. Now, say what you will about La La Land, I still love that film. It's a masterpiece. It's my favorite film of 2016, one of my favorite films of all time. But it takes a while until Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone's relationships come together. We see them as individuals first, and then they come together. Now, the bringing together of these two characters I find to be much more efficient. In fact, I would say, as many people have already said, the first act of this film is flawless. It's A-plus stuff. It's amazing. It is so good. It is amazing. They keep building up the fact that she's not confident. She's this amazing singer, but she doesn't have the same level of confidence as Bradley Cooper. And when she steps onto that stage for the first time, Bradley Cooper as a director and Matthew Libatique as a cinematographer, they did essentially what I hoped The Greatest Showman would do. And they threw all that filmmaking nonsense out the way and they just let her perform. Because I made a video a while back talking about the missed opportunities for The Greatest Showman in terms of the singing scenes. And one of the things I said was, don't cut so much. Just let the actors perform. Let them have their space. And that's exactly what they did. Minimal cutting, only cutting when absolutely necessary, using these long tracking shots, long takes, and especially in the ending sequence, only cutting to flashbacks and showing Lady Gaga just singing, because essentially that's what the scene is about. And it broke me. I honestly want to go back to see it again, simply just for that scene. Because, honestly, aside from the Infinity War scenes, the last time I felt that way in a cinema was when I looked at this shot. And if you've seen La La Land, then you know exactly how hard-hitting that shot is. And that is the exact same effect that when she goes on to sing Shallow had for me. It was amazing. I'm not going to say it's life-changing, because it wasn't, but it was amazing. It was truly something. And I really want to touch on how the cinematography was able to help push this scene, because Matthew Libatique did an amazing job. He's a very, very underrated cinematographer, I think, and I hope he gets a nomination this year, because the film looks good. I want to put that out there, and I think you'll agree with me. But one thing that I picked up on, and I don't know if this was an intentional thing, but the separation between each character is quite clear in terms of the camera work, because Bradley Cooper is always shot on handheld. The first time we meet him, he's shot on handheld. And Lady Gaga, the first time we meet her in that beautiful wide of a toilet, she's shot on a lockdown on like a tripod or a dolly. Now, I don't know if this is what they were intending to do, but I feel like the handheld represents like the freedom of creativity and the liberating feel of being a musician. And the lockdown sort of represents all the boringness of life, the monotony and all that, right? And as their relationship develops and Lady Gaga is really able to express herself, you see her being shot on, handheld a little bit more, and on the cameras moving a little bit more. There's just the more dynamic camera work. And mild spoilers, when she becomes a pop star, the camera work kind of goes back to that sort of steady cam, dolly stuff, and it feels a little bit more artificial. It has this sort of music video look and feel to it, which I think hopefully was very intentional, because it really worked to show the contrast between, her as a true musician, as the star being born, and her as a, as like a pop star or whatever. And I thought that was a really, really good use of the camera. There are moments that do feel a little bit jarring, and there are moments that feel a little bit too long. Like I said, that first act is perfect. The second act, there are some pacing issues. There are certain scenes that feel repetitive, that kind of come back again, and it's basically the exact same scene, and they could have just cut that scene out entirely, or maybe trim it down. And there are certain scenes that should have been longer. There is a scene that happens with Dave Chappelle's character. It felt kind of weird, and I just wish that they had spent more time on it. If you wanted to, just spend more time on it. If you want to do that. If not, just cut out completely. And so the second act did feel slightly inconsistent, but then it picks up to the third act for an amazing, amazing finale that I talked a little bit about before. And if you've seen the film, you'll know exactly what I mean. And this finale also broke me. When Bradley Cooper makes this big decision that he makes in the film, that scene also, it wasn't a big moment. That was this big musical moment. It was just this small, subtle moment. And again, the cinematography, the filmmaking of it, they let it breathe. They did it on all one long shot. And then they didn't show anything so blatantly. They just suggested these things that have already been set up so well. And really, I thought the filmmaking was bloody subtle, and they did such a good job with that. And so overall, I would say that A Star Is Born is definitely one of my favourite films of the year. It's definitely one of those films that is kind of like a flawed masterpiece. I'm not calling this film a masterpiece, but it's like The Prestige. The Prestige is a good example of it. It has issues, but it is one of my favourite films because the good things are so good that, we overlook the bad stuff. And this is kind of the thing with A Star Is Born. grade-wise, because this review isn't really a review anymore, it's not like one of my traditional reviews, I don't feel the pressure to necessarily give a grade. But just for the sake of giving a grade, I'm probably going to give this film an A, because I don't think it's, you know, on the same level as La La Land or Whiplash, so that I would give an A plus to, right? Because I think the pacing issues, especially that second act, you know, it suffers a little bit. And so that's why I might give it an A minus, I might give it an A plus, so I'm just going to stay with an A. But I really, really love this film. I think that, like I said, being a really flawed film, it's fine because the good stuff really does overlook the bad stuff. And there are more technically better films, such as, I don't know, You Were Never Really Here, or Isle of Dogs, or whatever, like some really, really awesome films we've had this year. But I wasn't hit as hard by those films because the highs weren't as high as they were in A Star Is Born. And I really love this film. I think it has so much charm. I think it's so unpretentious. It's such a personal film. It has so much heart. And for a film, like I said, that is kind of built for the awards, it feels incredibly unpretentious. So that was my sort of thoughts on A Star Is Born. A little bit more detailed in one or two aspects here. And I hope that when I get to review some of these films in the future, I hope that I can be a little bit more detailed and talk about certain elements with more specificity, as opposed to just kind of going over everything. Yeah, so that was my review for A Star Is Born. Please stay tuned for a video essay coming soon, and I will be seeing First Man soon as well, so please stay tuned for another one of these detailed reviews. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Thank you.